Hello and welcome to today's Delta Credit Tip. Today is part 2 of our series on the 609 loophole that you see all over the internet. Today we're going to dive a little deeper into this law and what it means to you as a victim of identity theft and how all these online tricksters are misconstruing what it means for you as a consumer. So stay tuned, come right on back as we learn more about that on today's Delta Credit Tip. Hello and welcome back to today's Delta Credit Tip. So today we're going to dive a little deeper into this whole 609 loophole law that you see all over the internet. But more specifically, we're going to talk about what the second part of that law talks about as far as you being a victim of identity theft and the procedures and the disclosures and that sort of thing that needs to go into place when you find yourself as a victim. More importantly, what we're going to go through is how the instructions that you may be seeing online is misconstruing the information and the practicality of your disputing things on your credit report as it pertains to the 609 law. Okay, so as we mentioned in our first video, which by the way, if you haven't watched that, I'm really going to strongly encourage that you watch that video first. All right, get that introduction into the law first before we go into this section. But in the first video, we really talked about the 609 law is really about disclosures. What are you as a consumer, what rights do you have as far as disclosures from the bureaus and creditors and whatnot when you are in the, requesting information from the bureau? And this part, this second half of the dive in that we're doing when it comes to identity theft is still really about disclosure rules, okay? But what this is also going to talk about is what you, the consumer, are responsible for as well. So the 609, the second part of the 609 dispute that we want to talk about is when you found yourself as a victim of identity theft and you're using this whole 609 law to your advantage to kind of unravel what happened, recognize that if you're contacting the bureaus or contacting the original creditors, the 609 law in this particular situation really isn't a dispute, right? We're not trying to correct erroneous information. It's more of a claim. You are claiming that you are a victim of a crime. And that's how it's written in the Fair Credit Reporting Act, is that at this point in time, you are declaring that you are a victim of a crime, okay? And as such, you should not be held responsible for an account that's been opened under your name or a transaction that has been done with an account with your name on it. Okay? So let's start with how this whole process starts and how it can affect how you do your resolution of this issue. So the way this whole process starts is you can contact the bureaus and let them know, hey, this information on my credit report is wrong because I've been a victim of identity theft. But really the entity that you're going to be approaching with this process really isn't going to be the bureaus, because once the bureaus are made note of it, or have been made note of it, they're really just going to contact the creditor, and your beef is really going to be with the creditor, not with the bureau. Okay? So once you are now in touch with the creditor, okay, there's a certain process that's going to happen. And the way this starts is the creditor is going to start to request information from you. Because see, right now, everything is amiss, right? Something's going on. Either the person that did the transaction or opened the account or whatever is not who they claim they are, or you aren't who they claim you are, or you are the person that did the transaction, right? And the business, they're faced with an issue here because there is an unspecified dollar amount of transactions that they're about to take it on the chin for because you're claiming it's fraud, right? And now this business is about to take a loss. So as a result, as a business owner, they want to make sure that this is legit. So the first thing they're going to ask from you is they're going to ask you to go identify yourself, and they're going to ask you to present either some sort of federal form of identification, driver's license, passport, whatever. And then they also have the right to ask you for whatever identification was provided by the person that initiated the transaction, or they can simply ask you for whatever normal form of identification that they ask for any kind of transaction. Right? The standard, whether it be something they do online or application or paperwork, whatever they ask for, they can then ask that of you at that time first, so that they've identified you as the proper person now that they need to be communicating with. Okay. The next thing that they're going to ask you for is a police report. Remember, there's a crime here. So now they're going to potentially expect that you've gone to the police station and filled out a police report. Now, sometimes that's a little harder than what you might think, because identity theft is absolutely rampant. And it's the police departments have been inundated, at least the police department in our area. I mean, they've got really to the point where they just expect you to do it online. They don't want you to come in. They're really not going to even do much with it. But they're definitely not going to waste man hours on every identity theft claim that comes into the police station. So whatever procedures or practice that your local police department has, you're going to need to utilize that process and produce a police report to then turn into the creditor that you're claiming you're a victim of fraud with. Okay. Also, there is what they call a standard identity theft affidavit that is provided by the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC. All right. So when there isn't a government freeze, you can request this form from the FTC. And that may as well be a form that the business owner or whatever department is handling this claim for you, they have a right to ask for that form as well. Now recognize that if you have filled out these forms, this police report, this affidavit, or whatever affidavit that business has as far as their normal forms in this situation, because they can request that from you too. Okay? If you filled all this out, this is their way of weeding out people who are making false claims. Because if you fill this stuff out and you're lying, well, now you are a person who's committing fraud, right? Now you can face repercussions for making a claim that is false. Okay, so once you've got the police report, once you've got whatever affidavit, and once you've presented all of the identification that they've required of you in writing, okay, at that point, that business entity has 30 days to then provide you with what all these people online are claiming that the 609 dispute can then afford you, like a copy of the application that the person who opened the account filled out, as well as a record of the transaction history. But recognize that this is not a dispute in the natural sense of a dispute. The 609 law is really about disclosures. What are you providing them, and what are they providing you? It is not the procedure of the dispute itself. It is simply the disclosures that have to go back and forth for the process to even get started. Okay? It is the 609 law, it and of itself, is not what's going to get the information deleted from your credit report. It is another series of laws, which we'll get into in a different video. Okay? So again, as you're putting together this information and you're putting together your letter of explanation, recognize that, again, I still strongly do not encourage you to quote laws in your letters, because if you're quoting the wrong laws, it's just going to open up a whole can of worms or close doors for you that would otherwise be open. Just simply explain what happened in the letter in plain English, right? And if they don't respond appropriately, at least you have the knowledge to be able to defend yourself and stand your ground and demand this information, because businesses don't want to lose money. They're going to probably give you a hard time. Okay? But you've got to do the homework. You've got to provide the proper documentation so that they can provide you the information like the application and the accounting measures of, the transaction records of whatever fraudulent activity happened. Okay? So, I hope this information helps. If so, please give it a thumbs up, ring the bell, right? That way every Thursday as we come out with more information, you're informed, you get it right out of the gate. But most importantly, people, we've got to share this information. And in this particular situation, there's a very specific way that I want you to share this. If you're online, if you're on YouTube, and you're seeing these videos that are making these boasts about, oh, the 609 law, it'll get it all deleted off your credit report. This is what the loophole is. It's not a loophole. It's in plain writing in the Fair Credit Reporting Act. It's no secret. Put a link to this video in the comment section of these other videos that are claiming this 609 law to be more than what it really is. That way, we collectively can inform others. We can help them really make a choice to make a change. Delta.